sounded like you didn't want to support low support people.
When we're told, you're a horrible mother, hashtag free Abbey. I mean, I've had it all. It kills me when I see those parents get such online. I don't understand it.
The more you talk about Abby's experience, the more I actually relate to a lot of her challenges, but like how you're saying different ways, and that's different ways of the spectrum.
I am Christine-Abbeysmom. I have a very special person with me today that I'm very stoked about. Janella, my girl. So Janella is here to chat with me today, and we're really excited because how did we meet? Like, let's tell the story of how we met.
Yeah, funny enough, I just made a TikTok video, so I make content on TikTok as well as some other social media platforms, but it's really involved of like talking about my experience as an autistic person, as well as just neurodiversity, specifically focusing on like marginalized people in the community. But I had seen Christine's video, funny enough, on my birthday.
Oh, it's your birthday.
Yeah, it was my birthday when I saw that. And I just saw that a lot of people were kind of, I think, misunderstanding or kind of not getting context.
Say it, sister.
Yeah.
You can use this word haters, bullying, hate, it was bad. And it's still bad. It's still bad. It's it's really hard to say above it. But as a low support needs person on the spectrum, you spoke to me in a way that I could hear it. You didn't yell, you didn't scream, you didn't bully. Mm-hmm. You would say, like, why did you say that? Or something, right? I mean, you asked me in a real, I think, appropriate way. Mm-hmm. What was that? Do you remember what that video was?
Yeah, it was just, I think it was in response to a lot of people being upset with, like, how you worded something where it sounded like you didn't want to support low support people.
I think, and that's a video I wanted to ask you about because in my experience as a parent trying to help someone that had obvious struggles, like Abbey was diagnosed at 2,
right.
And so my understanding is that some in the community are obviously deficit while others are more different in their neurological setup. So it was just like trying to understand and embrace, but what I didn't say, which is that doesn't mean you didn't need help. Just because you're neurologically different doesn't mean you don't have a whole bunch of support needs. That wasn't to me what the video was about. But you came and you shared your thoughts with me on that.
Yeah, I think it was just like because before that video, I had also watched you on Jubilee.
That was a bad one.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people misinterpret a lot of your actions on that.
That was terrible.
Too.
I want to say one thing about that, and I should have known, and I was stupid. They edited the shit out of that.
They did, yeah.
They edited it because you have to have a villain. So they took out everything that I was saying that was really trying to embrace the whole spectrum and say that thing where some are neuro different doesn't mean they didn't need support. Right. But, it's like that neurotypical passing concept where there's a whole bunch of supports that have to happen. But anyways, they edited it to the point of no return, and then I became a villain, and then that was that.
Yeah.
And that's why they've asked me to do other videos. I said no.
Yeah.
You're not presenting a fair shake. You want
That's
controversy,
true.
And I said no.
I think with that, I was probably a little like, I see how other people misinterpreted it and kind of casted her as a villain, like from the low support need community trying to be like, a lot of the rhetoric that they put on to Christine is like, oh, she's so controlling of Abbey. She always like takes over what she's saying, and she's like purposely like controlling what like Abby's like thoughts and agency. But when I saw that video, because I have a lot more friends in the community who are moderate support needs or like they're caregivers of they're also autistic but caregiving of like a nonverbal or higher support needs child. I was fortunate enough to have that experience of like knowing that side of autism and like how Christine's actions are more reflective of just like that's the journey that she had to do in order to get Abbey where she's at. So I think that's for me like my perception when I saw that video, and why I had that response with Christine's video is like I totally understand where you're coming from as a caregiver, but the way that it's being worded right now in context to like how lower support needs want more visibility, it's upsetting to lower support needs to hear kind of how she worded it, because it sounded like from everybody's like casting of Christine, that she's like, oh, you're not my kind of autism, like my daughter's type of autism, which tends to sometimes happen with some of the caregiver parents in the community. Kind of like what Christine was talking about earlier, where just there's this like battle between like caregivers and lower support needs being like, well, you're not actually autistic because your autism doesn't look like my child's autism. And I think a lot of people were putting that image onto Christine when that's not the reality of like how she is like being involved in the community. So
I mean, I'm trying to acknowledge everyone's part on the spectrum, and so I have another friend, Clay. Hi, Clay. Clay, you're getting your ass over here in the hot seat one of these days. Okay, so Clay also gave me some really great feedback, which was, and I love the way they said it. They said, you are sometimes black and white. You're a little too black and white about things. And I said, that's actually a really good criticism, I think. So I said, I will try to be a little bit more, open to the gray areas of things. And I think it's because you feel like you're defending your story. And one of the things I always say is sometimes in the autism community with low support needs, it's like, that's your story. And I know that's why I said the pain and the school experience can, for some, seems like it could be horrible. You're so misunderstood. That's your story. My story is like this kid is diagnosed, your whole life changes. Like everything you ever thought you was going to be your career, done. You've changed everything, and this is not something I even ever thought I could ever do or handle. This is not what I wanted. I was traveling Europe until I was almost 30, like with a backpack. I had a whole other life, and then I stopped everything. Abbey was my first kid, so I didn't know what I was doing. But sometimes you feel like you're defending your story. And that's where it's weird, because we're all in the same community. So I want to work with you and others that are willing to talk to say, how can we understand each other's stories, respect each other's stories? And I think sometimes the confusion is because we have this vague terminology. We say autism spectrum. We autistics this, we autistics that. And then I go, but that's not even a phrase you can use in this. That's like saying we mentally ill people in that world. No, what is it? Schizophrenia? Is it bipolar? Is it compulsive hoarding? Like, because with that is a population of people that would share similar experiences or have maybe similar treatments or whatever. So why are we doing that here? And so it's no one's fault. I always say this: it's not. No one's at fault. Even if someone hates me, that's not their fault, and I don't see them as wrong. I know that sounds kind of weird, but like that's because they don't understand my story, and they may have come into autism in the spectrum 2 years ago and didn't know what it was like before then. Not that we shouldn't have change and new ways of doing business. Of course we should. That's what growth is. But at the same token, this infighting is what I kind of want to change so that we can see each other together.
The more you talk about Abby's experience, the more I actually relate to a lot of her challenges, but like how you're saying different ways, and that's different ways of spectrum.
Well, I was just saying that she didn't have the words at all. She didn't have the language. You learn the language through a moment that you lived instead of the actual feeling words or the descriptive language. And this is why, as you said, Christine-Abbeysmom is so controlling of her language. It's trying to control her. It's like, guys, if I didn't have autism in life, I would sell this house and I'd be living in Italy right now. I'd be traveling around the world. I mean, like, look, I'm here because I'm supposed to be to help her, but this is not what I ordered, folks. I'm doing it because I'm a person that follows rules and tries to give 110%, that kind of thing. So it's because the words don't come. She still has a pragmatic language problem. But she has come so far since the age of 18. She's just turned 27. That I want to tell parents, please don't give up on your kid. Be the bridge. Help them get to their next level. Push them. You know how much I push this kid? Like, we live in kind of an urban neighborhood here, and I got her walking the dog by herself now. And I've built in rules for safety and stuff, but you know how hard it was that first time? I'm like, bye, go walk that. And I know a lot of parents just wouldn't do that because it's safety issue. It's like, it's got to be daytime, got to have your phone with you. And like, I have certain settings. But these things about pushing for independence, So with the language, it's definitely a thing where that's how autism affects this type of person. Why do you think that your autism is the only kind of autism out there? That's why we have a hashtag that says Abbey's Autism. When I started doing this and I got so attacked by low support needs, people who didn't have any of the issues she had, I'm like, what? I mean, she's a success story.
Yeah.
Why are you all hating? Like,
there's a type of autism over here. I honor your autism, but you didn't need speech therapy. And we were talking about masking earlier, and I want to get into that a little bit more because I think that's such an important part of how somebody with low support needs exists in the world.
A lot of I've told you before, I get your frustrations with the lower support need community because even though I'm technically lower support needs in level 1, that community is really hard to talk to.
I agree with you, and it's like, to me, how can we make the lower support needs community help us instead of hate us? Like, that's what, and I think what happens is then I've seen other parents with really high support needs, 24-hour care, and their entire channel now is defending their lives.
Right.
Because they're so attacked by low support needs. And I keep saying, don't respond, just keep telling your story. I want to hear what your day is like. I want to see what it's like. And I will tell you this. I mean, I guess I have a real specific place in my heart for the high support needs moms because they're my heroes. I've got, a sleigh ride compared to the commitment of that experience.
Yeah.
So when Abbey was like 4 and I was in over my head, I mean, it was so hard for me. You have no idea. Abbey was a different kid. When she was little, it was a 24/7 experience for me. I had no life, no sleep. She couldn't, if she wasn't on my lap, she was in a meltdown situation. So I became this like buffer. She couldn't do a single therapy unless she was on my lap. That's why when I talk about my therapies, I was in the rooms with her for thousands of hours from the age of like 2 to 12. I was in the therapy rooms with her because she would fall apart if I wasn't there. It got easier as she got older, but like that's a whole thing with her. And so it's like, how can we, bring that community together to say, I hear what you're doing and what you're saying. So for me, I look at myself and I go, I don't understand the high support needs. I don't have that. That's a different experience for those moms. I sat in a parent group when Abbey was 4, and I was having a hard time, and there was like 7 of us moms. And I was there maybe 5 or 6 sessions, and then at the end, there was a woman there, and I still remember her face today, I can't remember her name. And she was sitting in this parent support group weeping about her high support needs son, that she was having to make the decision to put him in a residential care facility because he was now 6 feet tall, he was 13 years old, and he was beating out of her. He was violent. He couldn't control it.
Yeah.
And she was crying because she thought, he was in pain, he's uncomfortable in his body, and she's still trying to love her 13-year-old, 200-pound son who was hurting her and punching her because he couldn't help it.
Yeah.
And the tears that woman was sharing in this room, both her and her husband, about having to do this, and she was feeling like she was failing him, and she was willing to sacrifice being punched and bruised to love on her son. And I watched this woman tell this story, and I didn't go back to that parent support group after that session. I cried my eyes out in the car afterwards because I was like, I don't know what that's like.
Yeah.
And it's like, it kills me when I see those parents get such online. I don't understand how you should be like feeling. You should be feeling it with them. How can you shit on them and say, oh, he can communicate with his eyes? Like some people say that. Like, how can they say that when it's like, and I felt, to this day, I don't remember her name, but when I feel sorry for myself about anything, because we're human, right? Like I would like to sell my house and be living in Italy right now, but that's not going to happen. Okay, whatever, other great things are happening, it's just not what I ordered. And whenever I felt sorry for myself, I'd think of that mom, and I would say, like, keep doing it, Christine, just keep doing what you're doing, because she became my rock and she doesn't even know it. I never saw her again. But it's like, it's that kind of connectivity. Why can't we be loving on each other and like helping each other in this community instead of like literally being so nasty and horrible and saying like that they say the meanest things. Yeah. I'm tough now, trust me. I don't delete, block, delete. I don't even care anymore. Leave it all up. As you know, you want to believe a hater, you want to be a low support needs autistic woman and go around making hate videos against people like me, then have a nice life. Yeah. What I took from that woman in that support group was strength and acceptance of her story to help me through mine. And I feel like if you're a low support needs autistic person, you could be mentoring a higher support needs person. Yeah. You could be creating a social group in your community. Yeah. You could be spreading love and joy. Instead, you're just hating on people.
I think Christine, from her experience and everything she's just said, is just there's that lack of connection. There's that lack of, in real life, like speaking and knowing somebody or family who has a moderate to higher support needs friend, and being very distant in a way like, oh, that's how their life is. The only reason that I feel like I am lucky enough to have more understanding about Christine's experience, other caregivers, and other higher support needs is because I have those people in my life to share those experiences, to sympathize, to understand those challenges and differences. But that is not the case for a majority of the lower support needs.
That's a great point, actually.
Janella, you said you get a lot of hate too. Like, what does that look like for you?
Well, a lot of the basis of my platform is trying to bring in that conversation, like bring in like, hey, autism is a disability, guys. Here's how it's a disability for moderate to higher support needs individuals, and how the struggles are.
I've seen some of those, and I feel like that's a really brave, and it's hard for her to say that, I think, in that community, because I wonder if a low support needs person isn't really aware of how offensive or how mean that comment was. I think sometimes they actually don't know that they're doing it. Because autism does affect your perception of social interaction. Yeah. So wouldn't it be fair to say that some low support needs who might be mean aren't even aware of how mean they really are? Yes.
I absolutely think so. That's actually a conversation I've had with my friends, because, I mean, for me, there's another layer of, like, being a woman of color. And just recently, like, having a lot of, as far as the hate, like, a lot of, like, racial slurs recently.
I saw.
Yeah, it's bad. But, like, it's, the conversation I had with my friends is, like, because of the cognitive inflexibility, because of literal thinking, because of this lack of self-awareness and things that come from being autistic, a lot of lower support needs people can be racist, can be ableist, can have these really direct comments without realizing and really reflecting. Like, as much as if you try to talk to them about that nuance, it's like really challenging to grasp it. And that's something like I just like really notice is the most difficult part about talking or trying to speak to the lower support needs community, is the amount of cognitive inflexibility and lack of like being able to unpack nuance when it comes to any discussion. And I think that's another element as to why it's like so much of like the literal spectrums of this is like my autism, doesn't look like your autism, and therefore you're not autistic, or kind of, you know, on both sides from like the parent or the infighting that tends.
And I what I feel like has happened from the point of view of the parents is that when we're told, you know, you're a horrible mother, #free Abbey. Oh, gosh. I mean, I've had it all. Then you get defensive, and then you start hating on that community because they're mean to you, and now you have a cycle of disconnect and anger, and I had a motto, which is, I will not hate you back. You can hate me all you want. I'm a tough old broad now. Been there, done that, so good luck. And I'm not going to hate you back. I'm not going to even block you. If it's really threatening or weird, yeah, maybe, but in general, that is not the thing. But anyways, I posted a video on YouTube, and I want to read this to you and see what you think, because this is exactly what we're talking about. So somebody wrote this. As an autistic adult, myself with a kid on the spectrum that has a little bit higher support needs than me, I strongly disagree with Christine's suggestion to show the work behind the struggle in Abbey's life. It's absolutely crucial for us to have shows that represent us on our terms, us meaning autistic people. This show is not about our struggles, neither as autistic individuals or as parents of autistic individuals. So please understand this, and for once, let us autistics, have something without having to mention our struggles. Now, this was me posting a YouTube video that said, Behind Love on the Spectrum, Abbey struggles with language. The whole story is she has autism, and our autism is about language struggles. So doing a show about language and talking, a TV show, is a whole main ingredient for us. So then, but it's interesting because our this, us.
Yeah.
Why do you think you are able to zoom out and be more open-minded? Where do you think that comes from?
That's a good question. I feel it's a very complex one though.
Yeah.
So I think it's a number of things. For me, I want to understand, and like from social situations and stuff, I need to know everything so that I know how to execute for myself. I think that's why really it's like I can be able to pick a lot of parts. Like I've had a lot of experience despite only just being 32, just a lot of personal experience with people in my own family with mental illness and undiagnosed disorders, coming from a semi like low income, mid income like family background, the cultural aspect of being Asian and like a young woman in an Asian family with having to be like not even following the rules in that way, and how like my autism kind of affected ways for me to be like this obedient or like Asian child, and then being in academia where my ideas are always challenged from writing and like trying to find nuance and through research and stuff. So I think maybe that's a lot of why I still have issues with cognitive inflexibility. I think it was more like social situations and wanting to have control, because my husband can definitely talk about those things in which I had the issues and through therapy have had to work through. But I think for me, that's why it's a little bit easier, just because I've practiced that for years of drawing nuance.
Were you involved or aware of the autism community before your diagnosis in your 20s?
No. I really didn't think, like, because my familiarity with autism was very narrow, I only knew from like seeing or hearing about autistic people. I never really understood it. I never like really looked into autism. And the one time I did, I was like, oh, I don't think I fit this profile, before there was more research on like how it can present somewhat differently for women.
So what advice could you give to people who may be a bit cognitively inflexible about new concepts or understanding someone else's story? Is there any sort of a technique, strategy that they could have so that they too could be a little bit more understanding of the whole?
It's just listening, and instead of reacting, which I think is how a lot of the community, even outside of like the autism community, tends to do. It's like it comes from like an emotional response, because they think it's being like their narratives or experience aren't being like fully connected in that way. Like listen to what the person is saying and how you could just understand like autism more. It doesn't always necessarily have to be like that autism is applicable to my autism, but just understanding like how it varies from the spectrum, and being a part of the community that way, and how you can help each individual. Because like that's what's just so ironic about the community. It's this back and forth of like it's a spectrum, but then when you show that it's a spectrum, they're like, not that spectrum. Like, no, it's high spectrum.
Finding that way to just not react,
Yeah.
but just keep learning about the spectrum. I know that's how I've embraced every pocket of this to the best of my ability, to really have people with low support needs come on here. What I say all the time is people that have autism like Abbey's, people that have an affective autism like Abbey's, people that are struggling with expressive language. I never say us, we. And I thought,
That's really interesting that you said, because I absolutely get where you're coming from when you're like Abbey's autism and stuff like that. But that's also been like why I think people backlash at you.
because I feel like it's the only kind of autism.
It could be interpreted as like the only kind of autism when you're specifying for a reason. And that's that's something I do a lot with my platform, where it's like there is a lot of generalizations that come from how autism is presented online on TikTok from lower support needs, because they generalize as like kind of that common sense, like us autistics. It's like, well, you're not specifying how it's so different for moderate, high support needs, how this thing you're saying is like synonymous to, or is like equal to every autistic is really not true. That's actually really interesting.
I mean, and I think it's interesting what you just said. I mean, she perfectly described that. See how it could be misinterpreted, that if I say Abby's autism, it's because I'm trying to help the caregivers, the providers, the teachers, the students to know if you have a Gestalt language learner who's struggling in these areas, this might be of interest. But if you're a low support needs, this ain't gonna make no sense because you're not affected by any of this. Right. I'm just wondering how, what parents like me, level 2 and 3 support needs parents can do to make the lower support needs community feel loved, feel heard, and feel understood. They come after us in a really painful way. One, maybe they're not aware of how mean it is or how divisive it is, but 2 is, I do go back to that they're in pain and isolation or just being misunderstood. So we come along and it's easy to dump those feelings on us, but how should we change, or what comes to mind?
I think the biggest thing that tends to cause fiction for lower support needs and caregiver parents is like the biggest thing of like parents being, well, you're not autistic because your autism doesn't look like my child's autism. So there is a lot of that invalidating of like, instead of how Christine is doing, where there's an understanding of the differences and trying to learn more and curiosity, there's more disconnect of separation, well, I can't accept that you're autistic because you don't do this or you don't look anything like my child's autism.
See that right there, if I may. That brings me back to the causality of the friction, the tension, and the hatred, which is one word, autism. Mm-hmm. The experiences are so different between some level 1s and some level 2s that I say sometimes there's almost no crossover. And so then you get people fighting about 2 completely different things. It's like an apple fighting with an orange. You guys aren't the same, but you're both fruit. Mm-hmm. So how can we better connect those dots so that everyone feels heard? And I always go back to the same language. That diagnostic language is just too vague. Mm-hmm. And I know so many low support needs do not want levels because I think they feel like invalidated. But level 2s feel invalidated, and certainly the profoundly autistic parents are. That's why they came up with the term profound. They felt like they were being erased from society, that they don't even exist anymore because they don't have the mic. They're not doing their own TikToks. It's the parents, and the parents get slammed for just showing life with a profoundly autistic person.
Yeah, I think it's just it's another thing of like everybody needs to learn more about each other in the different challenges, but be open to how it's going to be different and not overlapping in some ways, and still accept the differences. It is still part of being autistic.
That's why I love that we did this today. Yeah. I love that we were able to like share ideas. This is just the beginning, girl. Yeah. Just the beginning.
I really enjoy getting to know Christine more and just seeing how she and I really have a lot of the same goals that we want for the community. And so I think it's really sad that people have villainized her because it's the complete opposite of who she is and her goals, that what she wants to really bring the community together, as she's like already we've talked so much about today. But yeah, I guess that's my message. We need more opportunities and times to just be open with discussions like this, instead of trying, as Christine said, like defend our autism, but just know that, just understand each other's experiences.
Yeah. What can I say? 26 years on the front lines of autism interventions. Please subscribe if you want to hear more.